Today we're going to be looking at solving equations. To solve equations, we need to look at the properties of equality. The reflexive property states that whatever is on the left side of an equal sign is equivalent to whatever is on the right side of an equal sign. The symmetric property basically tells us that it does not matter what value goes on the left and what value goes on the right. It can be written either way. So an example would be x is equal to 3 and 3 is equal to x. It does not matter which side the variable is on and which side the constant is on. It can be written either way. The transitive property tells us that the first term is equal to the second term and the second term is equal to the third term. Then the first term has to be equal to the third term. An example would be x is equal to 2 and 2 is equal to y. If x is equal to 2 and 2 is equal to y, then x has to be equal to y also because of the transitive property. The addition property states that anything added to the left side of an equation, the same value has to be added to the right side. So if you have x equal 3 and you add 1 to the left side, you have to add 1 to the right side. The subtraction property, whatever you subtract from the left side of the equation, you have to subtract from the right side of the equation. The multiplication property, whatever you multiply the left side of the equation by, the right side must be multiplied by the same thing. The division property, whatever the left side is divided by, the right side has to be divided by as long as it is not 0. And the substitution property just means that every place that we see an A, we can substitute B in for it, and every place that we see a B, we can substitute A in for it. It is the substitution property. Our properties for solving equations involves using the properties of real numbers. We want to simplify each side of the equation first. To simplify each side of the equation, you use the properties of real numbers so that you can get it down to constants and variables. Then you're going to use the properties of real numbers to get all of the variables on one side and the constants on the other side. Then you're going to use the properties of real numbers to make the coefficient of the variable term 1 if it is not already. You're then going to check your answer by substituting the value you got for the variable into the equation everywhere that that variable occurs. Use the order of operations to simplify. You should get the same value on the left side and the right side of the equation if it is correct. Here's our first example. 13y plus 48 equals 8y minus 47. I have a variable term of 13y on the left side and a variable term of 8y on the right side. The first thing I like to do is to get all of my variables on one side. And if I can, I like that side to be the left side, but it doesn't really matter. To get my variables on the left side means that I'm going to have to get rid of 8y on the right side. And I do that by adding the opposite, the additive inverse. So the additive inverse for 8y is negative 8y. So I'm going to add negative 8y to both sides of my equation. On the left side, it simplifies to be 5y. Bring down the positive 48. And on the right side, 8y minus 8y, or 8y plus negative 8y, is 0. And 0 minus 47 is negative 47. So I just bring down that negative 47. I then need to get the variable term on the left side by itself. That's the 5y. So I need to get rid of the positive 48. I get rid of a number by adding its opposite. So the opposite of positive 48 is negative 48. I add positive 48 to negative 48 and I get 0. So I bring down the 5y. Negative 47 plus negative 48 is negative 95. I then divide both sides by 5 and I get y is equal to negative 19. Substitute negative 19 in for the y every place in the original equation to check your answer. So on the left side it would be 13 times negative 19 plus 48. On the right side it would be 8 times negative 19 minus 47. When you simplify the left side and the right side, you should get the same value. In our second equation, we have 8z plus 12 equals 5z minus 21. On this example, I'm going to move my constants first because it doesn't really matter. I'm going to move the positive 12. To move it or to get rid of it, I have to add the opposite. So I'm going to add a negative 12 to both sides of my equation. Bring down the 8z. Positive 12 minus 12, or positive 12 plus negative 12 is 0, which cancels. So that's going to be equal to 5z minus 33. I then need to get the constant of negative 33 by itself. So to get rid of the 5z, I'm going to add the opposite. So I'm going to add a negative 5z to both sides of my equation. 8z plus a negative 5z gives me 3z. And the 5z and negative 5z cancel on the right side, leaving 0, and 0 minus 33 is negative 33. I then divide by a positive 3, and I end up with z equals negative 11. Again, you want to take your value and substitute it in for both of the z terms to see if you have an equal value for both sides. You take a minute and try this problem. Did you get t equals 2? I hope so. No matter which term you moved first, you want to move them by adding the opposite. If I'm working this, I'm going to add a positive 4t to both sides first. This gives me 6t minus 3 equals 9. Then I'm going to add a positive 3 to both sides, which gives me 6t equals 12. Divide both sides by 6 because it's the value in front of the variable, and we get t is equal to 2. This example involves using the distributive property first. You need to think of this minus 7 as really being a negative 7 that you're multiplying through the parentheses. So we're going to bring down the 3x. We're going to distribute negative 7 through the parentheses. So negative 7 times 2x is negative 14x. And negative 7 times negative 13 is going to be a positive 91. On the right side, 3 times negative 2x is negative 6x, and 3 times 9 is going to be 27. We need to combine the like terms on the left side, and the like terms are a positive 3x and a negative 14x. We combine them by adding them, so 3x plus negative 14x is going to be a negative 11x, and then we bring down the plus 91. Now I have all of my terms simplified on the left side and the right side, and it's time to start moving or adding the opposite. I'm going to start by adding a positive 11x to both sides because the negative 11x is smaller than the negative 6x, and I like to keep my coefficients in front of my x positive. So I'm going to add 11x to both sides, which gives me 91 is equal to 5x plus 27. I need to get that 5x term by itself, so I'm going to subtract 27 from both sides, which is going to give me 64 on the left side and 5x on the right side. Divide both sides by 5, and it looks like we get 64 fifths is equal to x. And 64 fifths is correct. I like for you to leave your answers as fractions rather than changing them to decimals or mixed numbers. This one can be changed to a decimal, so if you did that, that is fine, but it is not necessary.